great idea. It proved to be a great idea. Since then, we've had 4 nations come into the NATO family, and I would expect others as we go forward. Also, so I want to pass it over to Senator Shaheen, but also want to welcome the Secretary-General. I think he's already making extraordinary progress, and look forward to the meeting today and us continuing to work together, particularly as we focus on ensuring that Vladimir Putin fails in Ukraine. Senator Jeanne?
Well, thank you. We certainly are in agreement on that, and Senator Tillis has been a great partner as we've worked on the Senate NATO Observer Group, and it's nice to have a bipartisan organization that continues to reiterate our support for NATO. Under Secretary-General Rutte, it is, I think, fair to say it is stronger and more able to address the threats than we've seen in the past, and I think sadly we have Vladimir Putin to thank in large part for that, because he has pointed out just how important NATO is, what a threat Russia has been to not just Ukraine but to all of Europe and to the national security of the United States. So we are very proud to support this organization. We're glad to have Secretary-General Rutte here, and I was very pleased to hear the Secretary-General and President Trump yesterday make the announcement about sending weapons provided by NATO from the United States to Ukraine to continue this unprovoked war against Russia.
I want to thank both senators for your leadership and for organizing the bipartisan, let's say, discussion in the Senate when it comes to NATO. This is really important. What happened yesterday was important. First of all, that the US will now supply massively Ukraine with weapons out of the US, not just air defense, also missiles, also ammunition paid for by the Europeans. And secondly, that President Trump said, basically, if Russia is not serious about peace talks, within 50 days, he will slam secondary sanctions on countries like India, China and Brazil. So my encouragement to these 3 countries particularly is, if you live now in Beijing or in Delhi, or you are the president of Brazil, you might want to take a look into this, because this might hit you very hard. So please make the phone call to Vladimir Putin and tell him that he has to get serious about peace talks, because otherwise this will slam back on Brazil, on India and on China in a massive way. So I think it was a very smartly, wisely designed announcement yesterday by President Trump, but also the weapons I think is very important, and we will find the money in Europe to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs to be in the best possible position during these peace talks as soon as they start.
Question.
Secretary-General, the President has said several times, including with yourself yesterday in the Oval Office, that the war in Ukraine is a Biden war, that it's a Democrat war. How do you respond to that kind of reference towards the war as something that's owned by one of the 2 parties rather than the current administration, which is continuing to
I don't think it's fair to ask the Secretary-General about a fundamentally political question, so let me see if I can answer that. This is a war that started when Vladimir Putin lied by saying he was doing a military exercise around the borders, then lied again by saying that it was a special military operation. He is a liar and a murderer, and this is not a partisan war. This is a war against a totalitarian who has designs on other nations if he succeeds in Ukraine, not to mention, or should we mention, Moldova, the Balkans, and disrupting the peace that is actually that's growing in that area. This is not a political war. This is not a partisan war. This is a murderous decision by Vladimir Putin, and he needs to fail.
Could I maybe, in addition, say that President Trump providing the javelins in 2019 have been crucial when the war started. The full-scale attack started in February 2022. And him breaking the deadlock with Putin, starting the phone calls, this was crucial because only the American president could do this. So I really want to commend his leadership for doing that. And clearly after the 6th phone call, he came to the conclusion the decisions yesterday were necessary to take the next step.
And I appreciate the President's action too. Next question.
Mr. Secretary General, can you put some meat on the bones as far as the announcement yesterday? I think we know the Patriots are involved. What other missiles and weapon systems are involved? How would it function? What countries are involved?
Well, first of all, this is an ongoing process. This is not just one package. So what NATO is good at is, together with Ukrainians, through our command in Wiesbaden, to design packages which are maximum useful for Ukraine when it comes to air defense, when it comes to ammunition, when it comes to missiles. So this is what we will now be working on with the US. Of course, in a way that the US still has enough stockpiles for you to be able to defend yourselves, but also to massively make sure that Ukraine has what it needs. And this is also sending a strong signal to Moscow and to Vladimir Putin that he has got to take these peace talks seriously and get out this historian talking about history since 1250 and send a serious team to Istanbul.
Next question. Right here.
When will the first Patriot batteries arrive in Ukraine, and where are they coming from?
Yesterday we have seen Boris Pistorius here, the German defense minister, discussing this with Pete Hegseth. So they are working through all these details. Many Patriot systems have been delivered into Ukraine. So what we are now looking at is to make sure that Patriot systems directly from the US go to Ukraine. That's one way to do it, paid for by the Europeans, or that you get a front loading from European countries into Ukraine and then being backfilled by the US. So this is all worked through now. But again, the structures are established. The infrastructure, logistics is there because this is not new. What is new is that yesterday President Trump announced that he wants the US stockpiles to open up in a way, of course, still Europeans paying and the US going forward being able to defend itself.
Andrew.
Mr. Secretary-General, what is your message to senators today about the bipartisan Russia sanctions bill? Is it still necessary after the President's announcement yesterday?
Well, of course, the sanctions bill is politics here. I won't interfere. However, what the President did yesterday, I think, is in line with that sanctions bill, saying, listen, if you are the president of China or the prime minister of India or the president of Brazil, and you are still trading with the Russians and getting the oil and the gas in, and you sometimes even resell it for a higher price, know that if this guy in Moscow doesn't get serious about peace talks, I will slam secondary sanctions on you of 100%. So I'm sure they don't know yet what hit them. This will take some time to sink in, and I think you guys making this clear in the media, the senators maybe also discussing this with their counterparts in Brazil, India, China, will be very helpful to put maximum pressure on Russia in addition to the weapons delivery into Ukraine.
But look,
Senator Shaheen, and then we'll have one more.
We need to go forward with this Graham Blumenthal sanctions bill. It's got 85 bipartisan co-sponsors. It sends a very strong message. We need to be prepared. If, in fact, we're going to give Russia 50 days, and I don't support that because I think every day that Russia is able to continue this war means dead Ukrainians, it means more havoc in the country, and it means that the rest of the world is looking to see what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, we'll take one more question, but first I should have started by thanking the President for taking the step that he did. The resupply is critically important. That should give Putin some pause. But the 50-day delay worries me, and that Putin would try to use the 50 days to win the war or to be better positioned to negotiate a peace agreement after having murdered and potentially collected more ground as a basis for negotiation. So we should look at the current state of Ukraine today and say no matter what you do over the next 50 days, any of your gains are off the table, and we should pay special attention, even the attack overnight, we should pay special attention to the murderous behavior of this dictator as we go into any peace discussions if they occur 50 days from now. Last question. Ma'am.
Mr. Secretary, are long-range offensive missiles part of this under discussion, and how much do you think these
Well, again, it is both defensive and offensive, so there's all kinds of weapons. But we have not discussed in detail yesterday with the President. This is really being worked through now by the Pentagon, by the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, together with the Ukrainians, through our command in Wiesbaden. So that is happening. And maybe to this point of the 50 days, I understand what the senators are saying. You could also argue that the clock has started ticking yesterday. Because yes, it takes 50 days, but at the same time the clock started ticking yesterday. And that means that if Putin doesn't get serious, the way President Trump designed his 50 days, the clock starting ticking yesterday means that they will start putting pressure on the Russians. And I think that is extremely meaningful. So it won't take 50 days. This whole process will start basically yesterday and hopefully lead to a positive result soonest.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.